My name is Virginia Jones. I dress by the Coco Chanel method. Does anybody know what that is? You put on everything you want, and then before you leave the house, take one thing off, and that's perfect. I don't dress by the real Coco Chanel method, which is before you leave the house every day. You fucking Nazi. I won't do it. Speaking of Nazis, I know it's a hard time in our country. It feels like, we're super divided. It feels like you're living among the enemy. You're always kind of on the lookout for where the bad guys are. But I want to remind us that we're all the same. We all came from the same place. We're all going to the same place. We all came from the same moment, which is when your dad came in your mom. And in many of our cases, that's the last time we made him feel good.
All right, Virginia Jones, are you good? You want to go?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Virginia Jones, one of the great.
We don't say comedian. That's
no,
not what we don't do.
Is gendered. That's like, is that like, do we say actress anymore, or do we say?
We say actor.
We say actor,
we
right?
Say actor.
Right. Okay. So the actor, comedian. Because comedian, I don't really understand that.
Right.
Why was that a thing? Where did that even come from?
Well, like lady doctor. It's like it's a diminutive, and really, what it means is a comic actress. But people have been saying it for stand-up comedians. But yes, we are stand-up comedians. The title is gender-free. We're all doing the same thing. We're humping stools for the amusement of the hoi polloi.
I've heard this term, humping stools. I have a friend in town, Ryan Danley, who we'll have on the show later, who has a show at the place over by Laurelhurst, around the corner there. That whatever the fuck it's called, where all the hipsters hang out. Anyway, he has a show called Stool Humping.
Beulah Land? No?
Yeah, Beulah Land. Yeah. Yeah, remember Beulah Land? Did you do that back in the day? Was that a place?
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
Right. I think when I first moved to Portland, because I was like, oh fuck, Laurelhurst Theater. Whoa, this is great. And then like right around the corner, there was this place. I go, oh, this looks like where like the Slater Kinneys would hang out or something. And
one time I did trivia at Beulah Land and watched Stephen Malkmus cheat.
What happens? Do you call him out?
No, I looked at him and I said, he's looking up stuff on his phone.
This is, privilege, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Stephen Malkmus privilege, hipster, indie rock darling privilege. But yes, humping stools is a joke about a certain like kind of lowest common denominator comedian, but it's also kind of true. One thing that I find interesting about comedy, funny about comedy, is that we are like the comedians, we're so far up our own butts, and we're like, you know what? I'm more of a philosopher clown. Like I'm really like speaking truth to power, like in a Shakespearean way. And yet most of our audiences really just want someone to hump a stool and scream the word Eunice in like a funny way. And it's like, how do these two groups of people come together? But there it is.
Well, you were my comedy Sherpa when I was in LA, and I didn't really understand how anything worked. Yeah. So if you're, here's the thing, as a teacher, I know that the young people, they're not okay. They don't know what's going on, and they listen to me, which is nice. And can we give them some pointers? A lot of my students, they're now 21 and older, and they might be like, maybe they're living in like a university town, like Bellingham, for example. A lot of them are up there. And, they might be like, hey, let's go to a comedy show, but they might not know how to react and how to respond. I know the first few times I went into a comedy club, but, I'd go alone, and I was like, oh, I didn't really understand what I was supposed to do, where I was supposed to sit. What's some etiquette for young folks trying to go to comedy shows to not be a dick and to be good participants in the comedy show?
That's such an interesting question because comedy is a real particular kind of entertainment. It's not like going to see rock shows. There is more audience interaction, and yet not as much as some people wish to provide. I was actually, I recently did a show where there was a table full of Gen Z right in the middle of the room, and every comic tried to do crowd work with them, and none of them knew what to do. And what was hilarious about it is that no one learned the lesson. Like, they just kept going back and going back. Are you guys dating? What do you guys do for a living? And then they just got like blank stares of children who don't know. They don't know. So some good things, some good hot comedy show pointers. Don't talk to the comics. I know sometimes you have a beer in you and something comes up and it inspires something in your brain. You get sparked and then it falls out your mouth. It's not helpful. Do spoke is spoken to. I hate it. I don't do it. But it is part of comedy.
It's gonna happen.
The crowd work, though, it will happen. If you are spoken to, please feel free to speak. And the third really good piece of advice is just relax. Just relax. It's low light. No one can see you laughing. Just have the time you're gonna have, and enjoy it. It's gonna be more fun as a group activity. Comedy is much richer and more interesting than it is on television or TikTok. I promise.
I love it. I think it's one of the great art forms. It's very intimate, I find, and it is like, you're in community there, but not talking to the comic, it's sort of like going to a theater production, in that way. It's like, you shut the fuck up and laugh, just listen and applaud.
Yeah, now, laugh or don't.
Now,
those are your two options.
Now, I've seen a lot of comics who do what we call crowd work, maybe, and often people sitting in the front row will be pointed at and perhaps asked, "Oh, hey, are you two dating?" Right. Shit like this, which I know is kind of hammy, but it's reality of every comedy show. If you're going in and you see that there's very few people sitting in the front row, but there's really no other place to sit, and you do sit in the front row, and the comic does kind of say, "Hey," and maybe they're picking on you or something, how should people take that?
Just know that the comic does not dislike you. The comic is trying to make a moment of interaction. Unfortunately, many times they will come from like a kind of like a negative perspective. Years and years ago, and I used to be married to someone who dressed in let's say a fanciful way. Almost always had leggings on, and just classic goth, classic gender bending goth. We went to a show in San Diego, California, because my brother was on the show, who is also a stand-up comedian, or has been a stand-up comedian. And every single comic asked him if we were together and whether or not he was queer. And it was like, after the first two or three, you would think they would like notice that other people had done it, but that was not the case. And they just went for like the most obvious thing over and over again. And that's kind of how it is. And a big part of why I'm not interested in the audience members. I have prepared material, but that is not always the case.
No, it is not. You are a consummate professional, longtime veteran. You've been on stage and on screen, both big and small. You're on the TikToks. You're on all the things. You are an exemplar. People would be very lucky to see a Virginia Jones performance. And how do you deal with? I'm sure you've had your fair share of hecklers.
Yeah.
And how do you deal with that?
It's interesting. I don't get heckled a great deal.
No, that's fantastic.
I think I scare people, and that's kind of how I like it. I have had some interactions, but like more frequently, this is what happens. I was in Austin, Texas, doing the Altercation Comedy Festival, which is an awesome kind of like DIY energy, like punk rock festival. And there's bands in it, and it's a ton of fun. They had a Plasmatics cover band called Tits Up. So good. And I was hosting for Kevin McDonald from Kids in the Hall. And but I've got a real specific job to do, which is set up the show for him to have a really good set. It's not about me expressing every artistic impulse that I have. So I was doing a joke about abortion. Mm-hmm. And it's
Hilarious, traditionally hilarious subject.
amazing, just an amazing topic. And
Yeah.
it's a joke where abortion is the reading between the lines part of it.
Yeah.
Basically, it's just like, you can't. I don't want to have kids. You can't make me. State of Texas can make me. That's why I stay out of Texas. That's it.
Right.
And someone in the front row at a punk rock comedy festival said, "Fuck that," and I was unsure whether he meant me or he meant the policies, the death of Roe v. Wade. I did not know. And I froze and I looked at him and I thought, oh, I want to find out what the fuck is with this prick. But I do not have the luxury of it. So I just had to kind of keep unpacking. In the end, it turned out he was not someone who went to comedy shows a great deal. He and his wife were mega fans of Kevin McDonald himself.
Sure.
And they were awful throughout his set, just talking, asking questions that were not questions, like, hey, remember you did a show 5 years ago in a yard and this thing happened? Do you remember that? So that's what his deal was. He had no idea how to behave.
He didn't see like the Chris Farley sketches from
it was exactly that sketch. You remember that? That was great.
I think that's the thing where like people they have an impulse in their mind because they have a relationship to a thing and they feel the need to say it out loud.
Yes.
Sometimes you just don't say it.
Right. And I'm a person made of meat. I've had that impulse. Like I've had crazy parasocial relationships with people, and they spend so much time like in your head and like on your screen, and you think they understand where I'm coming from, but they do not. And then later, after the show, I had to keep them away from Kevin McDonald because Kevin McDonald did not wish to have any more interactions with them. And this is how he said it: "I don't wish to have any more interactions with them." And that's how that was. But yeah.
What do you do? Do people have to get removed after a while? Is that the job of a comic? Do you have like
these people probably should have been, but it was been also very sad because they were obviously tremendous fans, but just could not hold their act together. It is kind of the audience. It is kind of the club or the venue's job to remove, and the audience needs to know that that's an option. I did a show with, not to be just dropping fucking names, but I did a show with Maria Bamford, and she's amazing, a goddess, a legend, a genius.
Absolutely. Oh, hero.
And she did a show, and she sells out shows. She's not to be fucked with. She's not to be taken lightly. But also, she has a policy where she doesn't like to do shows where it's not her show. Mm-hmm. Because if you're not there to see a Maria Bamford,
right, you
may not understand what you're in for. Right. Because it's very different, and it's very personal, and it's very like there's voices and there's so many things. And she wound up having one guy in the audience in a sold out show whose friend had brought him. And he kept talking to her and saying things like, "Oh, that was pretty good," or "You should do more like that," or like more and eventually that person was removed, but it took far too long. So, what was funny was at the end, the friend felt badly because the friend thought, I'm going to share this thing that I love with my friend. And instead he just brought a chatterbox who had to be removed. And, the same security guard came back to the green room and said, "Maria, like this guy wants to say sorry and talk to you." And I could tell she didn't want to. And I was like, you don't have to. You don't owe this person anything. This is not your job to make him feel better about the fact that he brought a crazy dickweed to your show. In the end, she did do it. But I'm like, I'm very protective of her, particularly. I'm like, this isn't, you don't gots to. That person actively tried to ruin the show. She has a really great bit because she doesn't do crowd work. None of us do.
The good ones don't do crowd work. Is that frowned upon amongst the pro
crowd work
level?
Is its own fucking skill set.
Right.
I mean, I don't frown on it. Like Lori Kilmartin does it, and she's a genius at it. She's been doing it forever. She would rather do crowd work than her own material, and she's great at it. Marie and I agree that if we could just immediately be great at it with no learning curve, we would do it.
Mhm.
But Maria's bit is if someone talks, is she's like, "Oh, you want to be part of the show? I'm going to cast you as the little deaf mute girl. Go." And that works most of the time. That works most of the time. I frequently say, because like most of the time when people do heckle me, it's someone who's just so excited about something. And I have to go like, hey, you and me, we're going to get into it. After this, we're going to have drinks. We're going to get matching tattoos. But now you got to shut up. You got to shut up.
You have a wonderful podcast with your sister called My Sister's a Therapist. Everyone check it out. But on there, you did an episode that comedians are mentally ill people. Now, as a person with multiple mental illnesses, I'm like, yay, community. But when you say comedians are all mentally ill, which I sort of get, but I wonder if you can articulate that a little bit.
So the short version is because like the conventional wisdom is, oh, comedians are depressed, comedians have drug and alcohol problems, and comedians are sometimes resistant to that because like who wants to be put in that box? But the fact is, learning how to do comedy is hard, and it takes a long time. Nobody has ever gotten on stage and been amazing and like not had to learn anything. And comedy, unlike playing guitar or needlework, has to be done out in front of people. You have to have that feedback loop. Mm-hmm. And so you've got something that's really hard and that has to be done in front of people. So the first couple of years, you're just going to be eating shit like you're a shit-eating robot who was built to eat shit, and that's your only job, and you love your job. And I think it takes a mentally ill person to do that. I think that the real willingness to suffer in exchange for a hopeful benefit, I think is the mark of mental illness. But also, and I learned this during COVID, and I know a lot of your work is about the social change that happened during lockdown. What I learned during COVID is that all these people who I thought were my friends, all these comics, we don't really have anything in common except for we are addicted to the drug that is stand-up comedy. Mm-hmm. We are addicted to the release that happens when you are getting laughs from a crowd. And suddenly we weren't able to do that anymore. And it's a big part of all of our coping strategies, right?
Oh, yeah.
So it got weird, really weird. And we were trying to do shows online, which mixed success. And like people were doing like illegal underground shows because we were addicted to this thing and we didn't know how to keep our shit together without it. So yes, we are mentally ill, prone to drug and alcohol abuse, all the things.
You don't, I've been to some shows with you and you have a policy of not drinking at your shows. Did you have to learn that?
I used to have a policy of 2 drinks. Ginny 2 drinks is what they called me. And because after that, you start to get wandery. You think, oh, I'm being like, I'm freer and I'm more creative, but really you're just messier. And now I have a policy where I don't drink ever in my whole life. So that's its own thing. Of the funniest mistake that I used to make when I stopped wanting to drink alcohol before shows, but still like I would work a day job and then I would sometimes be hosting, like it would be a whole night's work and I wanted to be there, but sometimes I would get a little treat. And so I would get a Frappuccino frozen beverage from Starbucks, get a little sugar, get a little caffeine before I hosted, say, at Helium. Mm-hmm. And it was so funny because I would have my delicious frozen drink and then I would get on stage and my mouth would kind of be frozen. My lips and tongue did not behave like they usually did. I'm like, wow, I've done this to myself. Amazing.
You've numbed your face.
I've done my face.
In front of
yeah. The moneymaker.
At a major comedy club.
Yeah. So you know what? You learn everything when you learn it.
Yeah, you kind of, I guess you lean into it. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Fucking A. How has it changed now? Do you feel like first of all, how long have you been doing comedy?
In May It will be 19 years. No, 19.
19 years. Well,
It's a Paul Hardcastle reference for any other Gen Xers in the audience.
you've been doing comedy since, some of my listeners were literally just born.
We're born.
Now, the Gen Zs, they are the digital natives. You and I are the you're, I think, a Gen X, and I'm like an Xennial or whatever.
Analog.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of change. Was there ever a time in comedy where you didn't have to be on TikTok and Instagram promoting yourself fucking constantly?
So, it used to be, and this touches on why I left Los Angeles. Audience, I've been 6 months back in Portland, Oregon from Los Angeles. So it used to be, no, you didn't have to, it was encouraged to have a YouTube. It was a place to put clips to send people to get booked. Before that, you would have a physical VHS tape. You would need to make copies of a 5-minute VHS tape and mail it to bookers. And I wasn't that generation, but I knew people who were that generation. The downside was you had to sell yourself to the bookers with a 5-minute videotape, and kind of the only way to get nationwide was to do late night. So there was this one gate that you had to get through. So the upside is each one of us is building our own audience now, but the downside is we have to do it through TikTok and YouTube and Reels. And there is no gatekeeper. The audience is the gate, right? And what's hilarious is we still really want to do these things that we were told were important, like being on late night and doing the festival with the questionable future, the Just for Laughs festival in Montreal, Canada. That was said in a very weird way, but I'm going to roll with it.
Yeah. Well, it's French, sure.
He's French. But those kind of don't mean anything anymore. So why I left Los Angeles is I was like, well, if I'm building my own thing, if I'm taking this thing on I became aware that a lot of times I was doing shows in Los Angeles just to impress other comics and like let other people know that I had stuff going on. And I'm like, well, if what I want to do is comedy and I have to build my own thing anyway, let me be somewhere where it rains all the time.
Well, we're happy to have you back in beautiful Portland, Oregon. And you're able to do all the things. Do you have to, can you make a living as a full-time artist right now?
It depends on how many t-shirts you're willing to sell. You can, but I mean, what they tell you is that if you can make money in any way besides stand-up comedy, to do that, because every other way is easier than this. You and I were talking a little bit about it before the show. You have to sell your own merch. You have to make your own TikToks. You have to get tape all the time, every day. And you have to constantly be in this churn of like promoting yourself and sending out booking requests. It can be done, but it's harder than it ever was, I think. Because like the managers now, like the high power, like comedy managers in LA, they couldn't make you famous now if they wanted to. Like they don't have the tools to do it. The tools have been taken out of their hands and put in the hands of the people, which is both a good thing and a bad thing, because the people are going to reward who they reward. It's still not a meritocracy, but you do build your own audience.
And do you have to go to LA or New York, do you think, if you're going to be at that point?
I don't think so. I think if you want to be in film and television, LA is still not the worst option, but every year less and less so. Like the shooting is 15% down from where it was last year, and it was down last year. It's been down the last 5 years. New York, if you want to be the best club comic in the world, the fastest, and probably the best at crowd work, New York is a great place to be.
Because we're all like cold and bitter as a native New Yorker,
Well, but you can, in more practical terms, you can hit multiple shows a night. In LA, it is almost like geographically almost impossible to do more than one or two.
Oh God, I know. Because in New York, they're right next to each other.
Right next to each other, and you get on a train and you do 15 things, and shows run from 6 p.m. to 3 a.m.
Right.
Oh, which is not the case in LA. So I think New York is still good for that. Chicago is still good if you want to do sketch, and if you want to be on television, guys, if you want to be on Saturday Night Live, step right over stand up. It doesn't have anything to do with that. Become a great improv performer, and that's a much better shot.
Yeah. Do you? So you've acted before, right?
But yes, I was in Portlandia. I've done a lot of acting. I always, just between you and me and your listeners, I always downplay myself as an actor. But like when I look at like my resume, I'm like, well, Jesus, I've been acting for 20 years. Like I do it. It's something I do.
It's hard as fuck. I didn't realize how hard it was.
Yeah.
You gotta have a good director, but do you have do you still go out for roles and shit? Are you still trying to hustle that?
I'm putting that on pause. I'm a little bit jealous. So my partner has been booked in 2 things since I've moved here.
Well, he's a producer. He's an actor as well.
Not really. He was always interested in it, but I think what he is a very distinct type and kind of a hunk, whatever.
He's gorgeous. Yes. Well done. Well done, Virginia. You get
but
that.
I was like, oh, they are shooting a lot of stuff in Portland. Like maybe I should get into it. But the fact is that between full-time job, stand-up comedy, and TikTok and podcast, I would have to start taking methamphetamine to do another thing. But it's too bad because I would like to. Perhaps someday in the future I will have the bandwidth to take on acting again.
We'll do some fun stuff. Yeah. And methamphetamine, by the way, I didn't know I was taking it, but I'm on Adderall now, which
Congratulations.
Microdosing meth because, like you and everybody else who's trying to live in late stage capitalism, I lose my fucking mind all the time. I'm going to segue then to, because now we've done all the fun parts. And I know as a teacher, you start with the fun parts and then you get into
you drag them in.
Yeah. I can't just start with so the Holocaust guys, you can't do that. So listen, I am agnostic. I found along my exciting journey through making class wars that a lot of people in our nation of the United States have been indoctrinated into a version of religion or some way of thinking and living that I find to be batshit fucking crazy. And I remember when I was younger and, people would come, the missionaries would come and knock on the door. We were all told to turn the lights off and duck. So, I know that you and Laura have talked about this, about your upbringing. Now, was it Mormon?
Yes, LDS.
LDS. So when you say LDS, that's Latter-day Saints, right?
Yes.
I remember seeing the commercials when I was younger on TV, and I had no fucking idea what any of this shit meant. None at all.
Our full name is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
And you have siblings, right? Are you the eldest?
Yes. You're
the eldest of what, 5?
5, yes.
You're the eldest of 5. So you were the first one. You didn't have like a cool older sibling to be like, yo, this is fucking bullshit. Just fucking play along. Mom and dad are happy. So when you're young, you're growing up, how are you taught to see the world and interact with the world through that lens?
Well, the Mormonism is an interesting mishmash of theologies and ideas, and all through the gate of a spiritualist, a water dowser, a diviner, Joseph Smith. And one of the things is that Mormons call non-Mormons Gentiles, which I know now we took from the Jews. But that's how Mormons see the world. It is very much us and them. And you should always be proselytizing. You should always be trying to get kids to come to the church. If they're not interested in the church, you kind of are not supposed to talk to them, kids, You are constantly putting on a commercial for Mormonism by being the squeakiest, cleanest, sweetiest, weediest, like scrub behind the ears, 1950s archetype. So that the sinners around you can go, wow, those Mormons really seem to have it all together. So it's a strange way to grow up. And my family was mostly my friends because we moved a lot, which had nothing to do with Mormonism, but we were kind of isolated and leaned very heavily on each other for companionship and like weren't really supposed to talk to the other kids anyway. So it was odd.
A lot of stranger danger, I guess. So when you're moving a lot, And that sucks, by the way. And
Right.
when you move, it fucks your whole thing up. It's hard to make friends. It's hard to meet people. Were you going to public schools?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, wow. And so when you would move to a new school, how would you approach that? Because, when you're a child, making friends it's crucial.
Right. Well, an advantage is that I got to reinvent myself every couple of years, right? Like, if something was not serving me and my personality, or if there was someone else who was really cool at my old school, I could just take that on, just like put on that jacket. But yeah, you also, it was hard to make friends. It was hard to make friends for many reasons, like being Mormon, I don't think helped. We spent part of our childhood in France. So like, as cool as that sounds now, like coming into a school in a small Texas town as a Mormon who also spoke funny and dressed very funny, and did not understand the slang of it. Like, holy crow. I mean, I was just like, it was like, carrying a cross into class every day. It was a fun, weird thing. But yeah, I kind of like, but I talk to people now, like, my partner is someone who has been born and raised in Oregon, and he will say things to me like, "Oh yeah, I knew them in first grade." I'm like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
It is quite like, for those of us I've moved a ton as well.
Yeah.
It really is it seems like special and rare and odd
and another world. But
stable.
yes, when it's crazy. But like, I know, he never really had the opportunity to reinvent himself, because no matter what he brought to school in September, everybody remembered who he was in August,
Yeah.
So there's good and bad. And I think a lot of people who move a lot, it lends very easily to being salesmen or serial killers. You're able to get people's trust. You're able to like get in and out of social situations, but it is trial by fire, I think.
When you're in high school now, and did you go to multiple high schools? Was this part of them, or had you settled down?
By high school, we had settled down for a while. Like, I went to junior high and high school in the same place. And so that's the town that I consider myself from. When people say, "Where are you from?" That's the town that I have picked, because I was born in one place, blah, 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 blah.
This was
so
all
that was nice.
Texas somewhere? Okay.
All Texas, all the major cities of Texas. Never had to live in El Paso. Thank you, sweet baby Jesus. But yes, by the time I got to be junior high school, now my brother did not have it. So like, my brother actually lived the last year of high school on his own in an apartment, because my dad moved out of town, and Robbie was like, "Just let me finish high school in the place where I started it.
Sure.
Let's just not do that." And that was very odd.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. Well, so you are well known in the goth community as the best goth comedian on earth, right? This is
Absolutely
true. Absolutely true. Was that, as a teacher, I've seen kids go through these identity changes over time. And when did that happen for you? When did you pick it up? What inspired you to go goth?
So I consider myself a punk rocker, truly, deep down. That is where my politics is. But then when I went to college, I'm like, well, punk rockers don't really go to college. And so goth is like, that was how I felt. It was 1989. Goth is kind of the more genteel version of punk rock. It's less likely to spit on your carpet. And like, I made my best friend in college was super goth. And so I think I just kind of fell into it, in that way. And it's just like Goodfellas. I keep trying to get out, but they keep pulling me back in.
Yeah, no. And, your sister talks about Robert Smith, quite a lot.
Oh yeah. She doesn't talk about it a lot, but she was heavy goth in high school. She was so goth that at one point, like, remember the like party light bulbs? It was like novelty light bulbs that you could buy.
Black lights?
There was black lights, but there were also red lights, and she had red light bulbs in her bedroom.
Yeah.
Which you don't realize that it's not going to be as bright as like white light bulbs. So her bedroom was just like a sea of black, and she would just pick up random pieces of black and then wear them out, and that was the outfit for the day. That's how goth she was.
So, talking about your family, so you've been very open on your podcast, like very open. I've been recently estranged from my family. It's been very frustrating, and it's just being out in public all of a sudden.
Right.
You're very critical of your family, very honest and raw, and I love it. Solidarity in the struggle. But what's the dynamic there? Like, when you've got 4 siblings as well. So when you become estranged and, family, Thanksgiving or whatever the fuck,
Right.
Christmas, it comes around, how do you navigate that? Do your siblings have to deal with stuff? Is there more on them? And do you care? I mean, do you just kind of say, fuck it? Like, how do you navigate that estrangement?
Well, right now I am only estranged from one family member who has taken himself out of the fight. And I'm sad about it. I worry about him, but if that's what's genuinely best for him, bless. So that's easy because he doesn't talk to any of us except for Laura. And I was estranged from my mom for a little over a decade. And when that happened, and we talked about it on the podcast, like it was really challenging. And Laura, like, particularly put a lot of pressure on me to heal that wound, mostly because it was inconvenient for her. But my mom, got on depression meds and it was a very different person than the person I grew up with. So we did, we have on some level smoothed that over. But my family continues to be very weird and has always been very weird. And but I try to consciously maintain the relationships because our family is a little weird and screwed up. There is no center. There is no fulcrum, right? There is no, my mom doesn't really do stuff. My I don't have a grandma anymore. Like there's no matriarch around which the family, solar system rotates. So anything we want to do, we need to make like an effort, and I do try to do that as much as I can.
When is there anyone else of your siblings that is still like LDS more? Which it's
No.
kind of a cult, right? Like
It is a cult.
Pretty fair to say it's a cult.
Yeah.
You say like Exmo, is that a term you use?
Yeah.
Which I had never heard before. What is Exmo? What is that for the listeners?
That's ex-Mormon.
Ex-Mormon. How did you become an ex-Mormon? When did you figure it out?
So what's weird is, and this is super weird family lore, my dad decided to leave the church. My dad came to my mom and said, like, I'm having some doubts. And she said, me too. And he left the church. My joke is that he wanted to start smoking and drinking, and he wanted to divorce my mother. And so that happened. What's weird is me and Laura stayed in the church, active in the church for another year. Without him, without the rest of the family was like, well, we're going to be Episcopalian now. And I was like, how can we walk away from like the Native Americans and the space Jesus and the talking rocks and all this stuff? So yeah, we hung out for another year, and like other families would like drive us to church. When I found out that some Mormon women had been excommunicated for supporting the National Organization of Women and the Equal Rights Amendment, that was the end of the church for me.
Ooh. Because
there was a lot of talk in church of like, oh, yeah, women are just as important as men. They have their own place. It involves more piano playing and child rearing, but it's just as important as the men who are, baptizing people and going on missions. But when I found out that the church did not want us to have equal rights and we're not interested in that, that was it for me. And then that was it for like all of religion, because, to be a convert and to make a decision to believe in something is very different from being born into it and like trained into it. So once that was BS, all of it was BS. And it's weird because like my mom just went right back to being a Southern Baptist, and my dad went Episcopalian, and like everybody kind of like found their own path. Like the kids, I don't think any of us are expressly religious, because it's a really weird idea. I choose to believe this theology. What do you mean? What do you mean? What about the one before? I choose not to believe that. Okay, I'm out.
Yeah, it seems like maybe you figured out, oh, this might be a sham. Like this might be
This
might be
feels
bullshit.
right. But like it's very mysterious to me. I guess it's like it's as mysterious to me as when people get divorced and they get remarried and they're like, well, that sucks. I'm going to try it with some other asshole and see if it goes better. Religion seems the same to me. Like, if this is bullshit, then it's all bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would we believe like Catholicism? It's been said before is every bit as weird as Mormonism. It's just very, very old.
Did you have to go through I was talking to Dave about this, and it was a different kind of cult that he was raised in, but he talked about this process of deconstruction.
Yeah.
Is that something that you had to go through, or was it pretty?
My deconstruction was really interesting because, and a lot of Exmos do this. I found later.
Oh.
I became very into reading about Joseph Smith and what a genuine weirdo he was, and like what the truth was of him as a person, because the Mormon Church is very much a cult of personality based on a guy who's been dead for a long time. Something I found out recently.
Oh.
So there's a great book, No Man Knows My History, by Fawn Brody, who was a grandchild of the second guy, Brigham Young, to lead the church. And it's just scathing. And there's all kinds of like scandals and crimes and murders and all kinds of great stuff to get into if you are an ex-Mormon. And then you can talk to other people about it at parties who won't give two fucks. But something I found out recently. So the hilarious thing about the Book of Mormon musical is that every single thing in the musical is true. Everything they say about Mormons is true. That is the hilarity. There's no exaggeration. There's nothing. The one thing that I took argument with was that they said that Joseph Smith was a blonde, and he was very much depicted as a brunette. He's very much Black Irish looking, like yourself, a very dark hair, light complexion.
Like a Colin Farrell.
Yes, sure. Very much. And every painting of him, he was so beautiful. And so you would say, well, yeah, he shouldn't have married all those teenagers. And he did make up just a real like horse shit of a religion to serve his own purposes. But you can see like he was charming and he was good looking, like he was a hottie. Last year, a descendant of Joseph Smith found what they think is the only photograph of him. And we were all catfished. He looked like Frankenstein's monster just going through the Badlands, marrying teenagers. Like, it is crazy. And like, I was shocked. Like, as someone who's been out of the church for a long time, shocked out of my boots at how fugly this dude was. But because every painting was idealized, and every painting was idealized in the same way. He looked like the same dude painting to painting, but I think it's like Joseph, or like, oh, what a Freudian slip. I think it's like Jesus Christ. We decided this one idealized version. That's the one that everyone else is going to copy. But yeah, he was, and like, you could say, oh, maybe he was older when the photograph was taken. Dude was dead in the ground at 38 years old.
Oh, for real? Yeah.
Yeah, he got shot in a jail. People did not like him.
Damn. So it is all about perception management, yes. Essentially.
Yeah, the glamour. And it was easy to do in those days because you didn't have TikTok and you didn't have YouTube. And if you saw an engraving of someone, you're like, well, that's what they look like. Last thing about Joseph Smith for right now. So he was killed murdered. And if you say that in the Mormon church, they will correct you and say martyred. He was killed in a jail, and he was killed by a mob. And the mob a lot of them were Masons. And as he died, he said, is there no one who will help a widow's son? which is supposed to, in Masonic lore, supposed to be like the like emergency clarion call that everyone is supposed to respond to as a Mason, and a crowd full of people pretended that they didn't know what the fuck he was talking about.
Because he had done his research. Like he was a hustler.
He was a Mason.
Yeah.
He was in it.
For real. Yeah.
Yeah. He wasn't effing and jeffing. Like he was part of that group. But they really, really didn't like the whole teenage marrying. The Mormons were known as, they would take your land, they would vote you out, they would take over your community. They were extremely, extremely unpopular.
All right, Virginia Jones, thank you so much for being on the show. Now, before we go, people are looking for comics today. They don't want to go on Netflix and watch the same fucking people all the time. Who should they be looking for? Who do you love? Who do you recommend people check out if they want to follow comedy right now?
First and foremost, Maria Bamford, Jackie Cation, and Laurie Kilmartin. They're my trifecta. They're so good. I am loath to recommend men, but Dana Gould has been writing for a long time, and he is very funny. And the Irish comedian Dylan Moran is great. Very dark.
Black Books, right?
Yes, Black Books, and that's
one of my favorites.
That's his actual personality.
He's just like a bitter Irish guy. That's great.
Yep.
It's fucking hilarious.
Richard Ayoade in British comedy, I love him a lot. And
from the IT crowd, and pops up in every animated film now as a voice.
I guess he doesn't really do stand up, but man, he voices everything. Aisling Bay is an Irish woman who is amazing. And her last name is spelled Bea, and her first name is spelled you don't even want to know. You don't even want to know.
You won't know because there's gonna be letters in there that you don't pronounce.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those.
And as far as Americans, one of my personal favorite female comics in LA is Lizzie Cooperman. And she's not as well known as she should be, and everybody should go look her up right now. Look me up, Virginia Jones, but also look up Lizzie Cooperman because she's fantastic.
Oh, and if people want to find you, Virginia Jones, on the internet, where are you and how do they find you?
You can find me at www.badinia, BADINIA.com. That is also my TikTok. My Instagram is also Badinia. If you live in the Pacific Northwest and would like to see a show, my gosh, I do a lot of them, and I promote them all on Instagram. And I have my calendar up on Badinia.com should you choose to go look at that.
Everybody should go to a Virginia Jones show at one point in your life. You are a national treasure. Virginia Jones, thank you so much for being on the show today. And I'm excited to talk to Laura soon as well.
Yeah. We would love it if you would check us out at My Sister the Therapist. And anybody in the San Francisco area, I will be appearing at San Francisco Sketch Fest the first weekend, January 17th to 19th.
Brilliant. A great fest. Thank you so much, Virginia Jones, for being on the show. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been lovely chatting with you.
Oh, lovely as well. And Happy New Year to you.
And Happy New Year to you too.